You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com. You wanted it, you got it. A radio program that helps teach you options trading inside and out, basic to complex. This is Options Bootcamp. Whether you want to learn how to protect your portfolio, generate income, or even become a master of volatility, the Options Bootcamp drill instructors will break it all down for you. Now, let's get you into peak options trading shape. Here are your Options Bootcamp drill instructors.
All right, everybody, that music means we are back not on Education Wednesday, actually rolling out a rare Education Tuesday this week. My name, of course, Mark Longo from theoptionsinsider.com. If I sound a little bit more low-key than normal, it's because I am coming over just on the other side of something nasty. Just felled me yesterday. I apologize to all of you who were looking forward to some options boot camp, and option block and crypto rundowns, our usual Monday assortment of shows. I was just felled, struck down, listeners. It happened so quickly, we didn't have time to get all the usual logistical pieces in place to have guest hosts step in. So it was one of those things, listeners, just didn't work out. But I'm back. I'd say I'm 85% raring to go. So good enough. I better be good enough today because we got a double header in the works this week, listeners, for the old OBC, because I will be traveling for the next week. So good to have a couple in the can, as well as, if that's not enough for you listeners, and if our producers don't hate me even more, then we have a great pro Q&A coming up. Their good buddy Kevin Green from the Schwab Network coming up later today as well. That's exclusively for our pro members. So stay tuned for that. That'll be coming up a little bit later today after the OBC. Of course, if you want to check that out for yourselves, only one place to get it, theoptionsinsider.com/pro. is the place to go to learn more, as we learn who's joining us on this Education Tuesday. I don't know who's going to come on the Education Tuesday show, because only Dan is scheduled for the Wednesday shows. Maybe we got a new name. Let's see who's joining us today. Who is that on the other side of the microphone today?
You're stuck with me.
Dang it. Somehow you got the invite. I don't know how that works, sir. I thought we were going to scoot around you today and manage to, what they say in dodgeball, duck, dodge, dip, dodge, and dive. Something like that. the 5 Ds. Great movie. But I'm glad you can make it, sir, on this, shall we say, earlier edition of OBC, as we dive on into a little bit of late after hours talk with a little bit of the old basic training.
All right, Boot, it's time to get in line. What you're going to do is learn. You're going to learn how options work. Do you hear me? Yes, sir. You're going to learn options trading inside and out, basic to complex. There will be no failures. Do you hear me? Yes, sir. Pull in, prepare to learn. Yes, sir.
All right, everybody, welcome to a little bit of the basic training. Dan, our chat is accusing me of having the Irish flu. But first off, I am not Irish. And secondly, that would have implied something fun to at least lead to my sickness, which alas did not occur. So there was no fun to have the payoff after. It was just all payoff all the time. But thank you for your kind words. But there are a few nice folks in our chat, Dan, and they're nice. A couple of wiseacres, too, which have fun. But let's have a little bit of our own fun here on the old show today, listeners. We're going to continue on a topic we touched on recently. It was all the rage, all the talk down at the Options Industry Conference. Some of that content is already starting to make its way out to the network. A lot of our pro folks have already received it out there, so you're already kind of knee deep, including your folks are getting some cool exclusives on the pro. I can't say more, but you're getting some cool stuff out there. So make sure, again, cheap plug, check out the Pro if you're not already. But some of that great stuff coming out. You'll see some of my conversations I had, and a lot of it centered around this big news that we talked about on the show a couple of weeks ago, which is, of course, this proposed pilot from NASDAQ for, you can effectively call your zero DTE pilot, listeners. And they propose to have, all the things we talked about, keep the MAG 7 plus 1, and then to keep everything else the same. And that was a sticking point for a lot of people, which is they were leaving everything else the same, including keeping the Contra-Exercise hours intact. And that left a lot of you to ask a lot of questions. Like, what are we talking about? What is that Contra-Exercise window? What exactly are you referring to? So I thought, Dan, that would be a good topic to discuss and indeed to clarify for people on today's show, just to make sure everyone's working from the same baseline, everyone knows exactly what we're talking about, and maybe why some folks might have some issues with this potential pilot. So Dan, what the heck are we talking about? If I say to you, the Contra-Exercise window, what springs to mind for you, sir?
So usually when an option is in the money, you want to exercise the darn thing, because it's always, it's usually in your best interest, almost always. Even if it means losing money, it means losing less money. But there are sometimes, not too often, but sometimes when it could make sense to decide not to exercise something that's in the money. And they give you just a little window of time. And it's not a little window. I mean, it's an hour or something. In order to contact the broker and say, hey, don't exercise this. Contra means like opposite, right? Contra-exercise. Don't exercise it even though it's in the money.
And you are correct, sir. And also our chat has corrected me as well. It was Patches O'Houlihan, and the correct term is dodge, dip, duck, dive, and dodge. Yes, how could I have forgotten that? That's one of my favorite parts of that movie. The 5 Ds. Yes. We could probably spend the whole half hour talking about just the glory, the greatness that is dodgeball as a sports film. Look, you got me laughing. That's good. That's good, listeners. You're cheering me up here. But yes, you are on the money there, Mr. Dan. This options exercise window, which is also obviously the Contra-Exercise window, listeners, is a period of time set aside by the OCC. This is mandated by the OCC, the Options Clearing Corp, the folks who take the other sides of your options trades. This is not an exchange by exchange decision or anything like that. OCC lays down the law on this, and they say, okay, you have until 5:30 Eastern time, or 4:30, obviously, in the one true time zone, the central time zone. So obviously an hour and a half roughly after the standard closing bell out there. Obviously a little bit different if you're talking indexes, but effectively an hour and a half after the closing bell. So that is your window. You basically have an hour and a half to make up your mind, listeners, what you want to do. Now, I should point out, you don't have all of that hour and a half, because some various brokers are going to curtail that a little bit because they need some processing time. You can't hit them up at, an hour and 29 minutes and say, I don't want to exercise. They might not have enough time to effectively process that request. So different brokers are going to have different cutoff windows within that. I pulled up a couple just to look. I pulled up IB, for example, right before the show just to see what their cutoff. And Dan, they're pretty generous. They give you all the way until effectively 5:25. So they only need about 5 minutes to process your trade. So that seems pretty generous. Others are a little bit more restrictive. You have to check with your broker to make sure. So don't hang out until, 4:29 Central, 5:29 Eastern, and then expect to be able to contact that. Another thing about this is if you're going to have to actually implement this, they're probably going to make you call them. I was looking to see, I think Robinhood might let you do some stuff in the app, but for the most part, they're going to make you contact them, because in the old school, they wanted to make sure you knew what the heck was going on. They want to make sure you knew what the heck you were doing before they let you refuse to exercise your options. They would say, hey, this is in your economic advantage to exercise these. You're X amount in the money. Why don't you want to exercise these? So they're probably going to want you to do that, which is another reason why you probably want to save yourself a little bit of extra time. The earlier you can do it, the better, because you need to contact your broker and get through the, all the prompts and get to the person you need to speak to. So give yourself a little bit of time. If you push in a half an hour or an hour, you're probably starting to push it. You don't wait to the last minute. And then another thing about this, and I was talking to some market making firms about this down at the conference, Dan, and they've kind of said this for a while, that maybe this window is a little bit exorbitant. It stayed at an hour and a half for the most part as a protection for market makers to let them have extra time, because you can imagine, listeners, if you're market makers and equity options, you have a lot of positions flying at you fast and furious at the end of the day, especially on Expiration Friday. And if they add these 0 DTEs, expiration every week, or every day, I should say, and now you have a lot of positions that are settling it to stock, and you have to be able to process all that. Maybe you don't want to take the stock here, but you do want to take it there. So giving the market makers a little extra time to process all that is the reason why this window is as long as it is. But some of them have admitted it's kind of morphed, Dan, in the modern era into a bit of a free show. Market makers are aware that they have this extra period of time in order to not exercise their options. And we touched on it last time on the show, Dan, about how, you know, something could happen in the after hours, and your average retail customer just isn't aware that they have this power to not exercise their options. And so they assume their options, let's say their options go out a penny in the money. And so now they have to buy, whatever, 1,000 shares of XYZ. And they're like, okay, I guess that's it. I'm buying it where it pretty much went out. And okay, that's fine. And then they don't realize they have an hour and a half after the close. And of course, an hour after the bell, the CEO steps down or something dramatic happens. And that stock is plummeting 5, 10, 20% in the after hours. And next thing you know, they're coming in on Monday and they're wearing it on 1,000 shares of a stock that they thought they were pretty much harmless on. So there's things like that people are worried about. And market makers have said they would obviously be aware in that time and they would know not to exercise. So they've even admitted to me that maybe it's a bit of an unfair advantage. I wouldn't be surprised to see this window curtailed, Dan. What are your thoughts on that, sir?
Yeah, I mean, you made a good point about how a lot of retail traders don't realize that this is a thing. And that's why they call them options, not have-tos. You know, you don't have to exercise it. Usually you want to, but, and gosh, man, like I was thinking about it before when I was talking, I said, yeah, it's something like an hour or so, because I don't remember the last time I Contra-Exercised.
You're not calling up your broker every week saying, I don't want those penny in the money options to be exercised?
Not really. I bet it's been easily a decade. If I even did ever Contra-Exercise as a retail trader, I might have, but it's been a long, long time.
By the way, I think the options market may have suffered if they went with the name have-tos. I just wouldn't. The have-tos, the way you trade, I'm trading a have-to today. It just doesn't have the same ring. I don't know. It doesn't have the same je ne sais quoi to it. So I wouldn't be surprised to see that evolve. And this will become an issue, as you'll see when we talk about our poll in a couple of seconds. This might become an issue now if this NASDAQ proposal is approved, and we do see towards the end of the year, maybe beginning of next year, more realistically, 0 DTE options being listed and traded in the Mag 7 plus Broadcom. And now we've got stock flying fast and furious left and right in the after hours. The chances for retail, Dan, to get maybe left behind or a little bit run over, or to have some sort of disadvantageous outcome that makes a headline somewhere or causes an issue somewhere, is going to increase exponentially. Is that your thought as well, sir?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, probably. Yeah.
The deep words of Dan. Yes.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, probably. I love it. All right, so we got a question here. We got some deep words from our listeners as well. This one, I would usually have saved this for the mail call, but it's very much germane to what we're talking about here, so we'll get to it now. This comes from a Hero Spy. I like that handle. He's a hero and a spy, so interesting. He says, Mark, how would you and Dan have preferred to see the 0 DTE pilot from NASDAQ set up? Or are you down with the current setup? So great question. In fact, we did put that out to our audience right before the show, Dan. This is kind of our new question of the week. We said, are you excited about the proposal from NASDAQ to list 0 DTE options on the Mag 7 plus Broadcom? And we gave you 3 choices and the infamous other listeners. Heck yes, list them now. Or we don't need more 0 DTE, or I got some concerns, or you have an other. And of course, if you say other, we want you to reply with your other. What is your other? And we got some fun answers already. Just went live right before showtime. You folks can vote along at options. If you're listening after the fact, it'll be available there for you out there. My thoughts before we get there, Dan. You know, I've been waiting for a couple of years now, Dan, for someone to do something. Everyone's been saying for a long time, we can't do it because of this. We can't do it because of that. But I haven't heard any concrete attempts to try to do something. So someone made the comment to me down at OIC, it's good to see someone finally playing offense for a change as opposed to defense. And I kind of go along with that mindset. Is this the perfect proposal? Does it take all the issues into account, including the Contra-Exercise? No, it does not. It kind of leaves all that stuff the same. So from that perspective, maybe it is subpar. But at the end of the day, it's something. And Dan, we could have gone another couple of years twiddling our thumbs saying, I don't know, we can't do it. Can't change the Contra-Exercise. Can't create this class of cash settled options. Let's try this instead, which I'm glad they didn't do that, by the way. I didn't want to spend a lot of shows on like this, Dan, explaining cash settled options over and over again to people who were confused. But I think for me, a limited pilot made the most sense. You know, why not? Let's try it. Let's see what happens. Everyone's afraid of all these horrible things happening. Only way to find out is if we try it, right? So color me mildly intrigued, Dan. Where do you fall? And then also, what is your vote in our poll, and where do you think our audience is voting?
I mean, as far as how they, as far as Hero Spy's question, would I have preferred to see it set up differently, the 0DT pilot? I don't know. I mean, what else? They're taking kind of the most active, most talked about names. So, yeah, I mean, I think it's fine. I don't have a better idea. Am I excited about the proposal? Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm not that excited, but I mean, the more choices that I have as a consumer, if you will, the better. And that's like well, I guess that's not under all circumstances. Like when I go to a restaurant, I don't know, what do you like, Mark? Like when I go to a restaurant, if it's like, I don't think I've ever been to the Cheesecake Factory, but I hear they've got just an extensive menu.
Yeah, sometimes you go somewhere and it's just overwhelming. They have too many middling things. You'd rather have like a dozen awesome things, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like, or like 5 things, that like, just give me like, do a few things right. And that's all I need, So I don't know, maybe choices aren't always the best thing, but yeah, I mean, how many times have I looked at sizing up? Okay, what expiration am I going to trade? Geez, I don't know. I just can't get enough premium with these, but there's too much time with these. So I don't know. I won't go as far as saying I'm excited, but it's probably a positive thing. Wait, what are my choices here? Heck yes, list them now. No, we don't need more. I have some concerns. I don't know. I guess I fall into other. I don't really have concerns. I'm not jumping up and down, but I'm not poo-pooing them either. You got one for I'm a nihilist?
I'm a nihilist. I just want to see the world burn. That's Dan's. He is the Joker from The Dark Knight. Get all his options talk. It's time for some end of the world prepping. That'll be our new show, Prepper Bootcamp. Probably someone beat us to that one, I would think. It probably exists.
Yeah, probably.
Let's see if our audience shares your nihilism, shall we, Mr. Dan?
Yeah.
Right now, 55.6% say, heck yes, list them now. Exactly a third, Dan, 33.3% say they have some concerns. Again, a perfectly legitimate response. I know we do have a lot of pros and industry folks in our audience, and they could rightfully have issues. Some of them are very concerned about this Contra-Exercise thing. They think this might blow up in the industry's face. So it'll be interesting to see. And 11.1% saying, we don't need no stinking DTE, Dan. And the folks at Schaefer's saw our poll, and they took umbrage at that. And they tweeted out to whoever said we don't need more 0 DTEs. And they put a GIF of Dr. Evil saying, zip it. So apparently they're down with the 0 DT. I got to imagine, Dan, at the end of the day, if you want to look at it from a selfish lens, if they launch this pilot, it gets approved. I got a feeling a few more folks will be beating down the path to the MTM door for some explaining in these 0 DTE single name equities, don't you think?
Yeah, I kind of want to back up with a question, and I might have missed this, and if I did, I'm sorry. I didn't go to OIC this year, so the Contra-Exercise timing change is that only for the 0DTE ones, or like
they're not touching it at all? It's all the same. That's the thing people have issues with. They thought maybe they would do something to adjust that, or maybe even get rid of it, or do something else with this pilot, and they left it all the same. So that's where the issue is. People think, oh, retail won't know about this window in the after hours, and they're going to be trading all these 0DTEs, and they're not going to know, and the market makers will know, and it will lead to some disadvantageous outcomes for the retail. And so I could see that viewpoint. I think at the end of the day, though, that kind of leads to a lot of paralysis where you don't do anything. So I'd rather see them attempt something, and we can all, maybe it doesn't get approved. Maybe the whole industry says no. Maybe, the regulators say no, in which case it's much ado about nothing. But these exchanges, Dan, all of them at the end of the day are now for-profit public entities. So they all see there's gold in them, Thar Hills. They just have to figure out a way to get there and let you dig for it, listeners. And this is the most current example. So right now, Dan, our audience, a little over half are in favor, and then about a third are a little bit dubious. And then you add in the 11% that don't want it at all. We got almost a 50-50 market here, Dan, which is kind of interesting. What do you think?
Yeah, man. I mean, just going back to the concerns here, the people who say I have some concerns with the 0DTE or with the Contra-Exercise thing. I think this kind of gets chalked up to just what we talk about all the time, the importance for arming yourself with education or knowledge, or however you want to put it. There's people out there who don't know about what implied volatility is, and they're at an even bigger disadvantage than not knowing about Contra-Exercise. So the folks who are listening to this show, well, now you know, if you didn't before. So,
and G.I. Joe taught us all that knowing is half the battle, Joe. Damn.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know. I mean, it's buyer beware for anything you do or buy or think about or get involved with in life. You just want it, like, you're in charge of your own destiny, for better or for worse. That's my draconian capitalist way of looking at things, I guess. I don't know. But I mean, people should know all the rules. And if you don't, you should put forth the effort to make sure you do.
Well, we just got an interesting question coming in here from our live chat, Dan, which I haven't thought about it from this angle before. We got Mr. Unlimited asking, is it ever up to the company if they want to go 0DTE? Like if Tim Cook says, I don't want 0DTE listed, one of the largest holders of Apple says, I don't want it, will exchanges still list 0DTE? That'd be an interesting workaround. For the most part, no, it's not up to the company, really, what type of options are listed on their stock. That said, if a major executive expressed some sort of displeasure with it, I don't know. I don't know what OCC would do, because it probably would come down to OCC at the end of the day making that decision. For the most part, they don't really have any skin in that game. Once you list your stock, the options are listed on it, and it's up to OCC to decide the parameters of all that and the exchanges to list them. But I don't know, Dan, what do you think if Tim Cook just stuck his thumb in the eye of options, said, I don't want no stinking 0DTE on my pristine, beautiful Apple shares?
I wonder what the legality is there, or I guess I should say what the law is that would certainly prevent that. Because I think, the thing that comes to mind for me right now is I think back, it's probably 10 years ago or something, but remember Elon Musk was talking about like, oh yeah, these people buying puts on Tesla, and he was, I don't remember what he said he was going to do, or, he was saying, don't do that. They're jerks. We should do something about this. But he didn't want people buying puts, but he apparently wasn't able to do anything about getting options not listed or puts not listed or something. So yeah, the one thing that I do know is that listed options, like companies can list basically calls on their shares, but those are called warrants. The listed options that we trade that are listed on an exchange, the underlying company, they don't have anything to do with it. And I would go as saying I'm about 99.999% confident that there is nothing they can do, because I'm sure this case would have come up in the past if there was something they could do.
Like when Musk said, 420 funding secured, right? Taking it private. None of that worked out either. But you're right. Yeah, I don't really see any mechanism they would have to implement that change. Maybe not just as an executive, but as a large shareholder, as you point out. Maybe they could initiate a shareholder vote. And would that even be binding to OCC? I don't know. That's an interesting gray area. I've never really thought about it before. There we go.
Yeah.
I like our chat throwing us some curveballs, Mr. Dan. I'm going to go out on not a very wide limb and say no, though, is the answer to that. Yeah. Unless they throw just such a huge fit in the media, like, Tim Cook's going on every outlet saying, I don't want these zero DTE things going. They're harming my actual company. Then maybe OCC might decide they just don't need the heat in that environment. They'll make a special election not to have it. But outside of some really aberrant scenario, yeah, the underlying holders, they ain't got no say, Mr. Dan. But they just got to ride the train and hope it goes well, as this show is riding on in to the station. All right, Mr. Dan, that music means we're done for episode 1. But you know what? The folks get a bounty today. They got another one coming up right after this. If you want to hear it right away, listeners, head on over to theoptionsinsider.com/pro. It's also where you can ask fun questions like that and all sorts of other fun. You can also participate in our Pro Q&A coming up in a little bit later, where you can ask all sorts of wild questions like that. So good stuff. And Mr. Dan, if folks want to join you in your various ventures and forays, where should they go? What should they do?
Well, there's many ways to get in touch with me, but how about for this show, I tell you about Wealth Building with Options, which is my Substack, which links to a lot of good stuff. I give a lot of free content there, so check that out. Wealth Building with Options. It links to the podcast. I have this podcast project going on. So yeah, check that out.
Podcast. Who the hell wants podcasts?
Right.
What a crazy thing to be doing in 2025, sir. How dare you? Check them out, listeners. Wealth Building with Options, and of course, Market Taker Mentoring. Don't forget the second T for Theta, listener. That's going to do it for us on this episode 1, but right back in your ear holes immediately with episode 2. If you're listening on demand, we'll see you next week. Another episode of Options Bootcamp. Stay safe out there, everybody.
You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app, available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com.